Hello and welcome to Game Changer Live. We were created to inspire you with topics shining lights on coaching, mindset, and more. And we go live on Wednesdays at 3:30 p.m. That's 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And live means that we're unedited, unfiltered, and authentic. So what you see from us is who you would actually be working with. And we have guests on our episode on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. So let's get inspired today with my guest, Dean Isaacs. Dean is the founder of the Vantage Group, which is a sales and marketing strategy company consulting firm. He also runs a growth collaborative, which is a mastermind for coaches and consultants. But Dean, those are words I use to describe you. What would you say to the audience if you were going to introduce yourself to them?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me on back as a guest. I appreciate it, Daniel. This is always was fun to do. So if I could boil that down into a few words, is we help coaches and consultants get through the revenue roadblocks in their business so they can grow, expand, and have more impact with the clients that they want to serve without having to put more work in.
Fabulous. We all work really hard, but sometimes it feels like spinning our wheels, and having
Yep.
someone in your corner that can really help with some of the marketing and strategy. Because when you start a coaching business, I can speak to this myself. You don't think about those kinds of things. You think, I'm going to be a great coach. You don't think, I'm going to be a great person at marketing my coaching business.
Yeah. Yeah, when you start a business, you're the expert in that area, but you're a salesperson, you're a marketer, you're an operations person. You're taking all of these roles, and nobody probably showed you the ropes.
Yeah, and some of them are not enjoyable to do.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, not everybody got into the business to do all these things. So
Right.
I'm totally there with you. Yeah.
Right. And so who wouldn't want it to be a little easier, a little bit more guided, a little bit more on the spot? So in and we work with a lot of coaches. We have a lot of coaches on as guests to talk about their business. But who among our audience, who's listening today that could really benefit from what you're going to be talking about?
That's a great question because I think that regardless of where you're at in your business career, your coaching or your consulting career, there's always this challenge around how do we differentiate from the competition? How do we actually be profitable consistently? What do we price our stuff at, right? And all of these pieces and parts. And we talked before we hopped on today, when you went through your coaching program to learn to be a coach, they told you package your services. But they didn't really say what it was or how to do it. So anybody that's struggling with those things, I think they could learn some things today. And that maybe you've been in business for a long time and the market's changed. Maybe what you want to offer has changed. Maybe you just can't take on any more one-on-one clients and you've got to do something different. Or you're just looking for that first, ideal client in your business. So I think there's a lot of takeaways today that people can benefit from.
And I'm really excited about this too, because I've been rebranding my focus, my niche. So I'm going to be taking notes as we go. I'm going to have the video and watch it a couple times. So share all of your secrets today. Well,
be ready, man. It's going to come.
So you're here to talk to us specifically about that kind of productizing or packaging. What does that mean? And I guess that specifically you talk about productizing your knowledge and experience. So what does that mean?
Yeah. It's it's anything we do to move away from the very typical trading an hour for an hourly rate, an hour of your time for an hourly rate. And when I started out in consulting, I've been consulting now for about 18 years. And at the beginning of my career, all I did was project work. But how do you come up with a fee for a project? How many hours is it going to take me? And what can I charge by the hour? It's still hourly work, right? It just is wrapped up in a project. And when I started Vantage Group about 12 years ago, I sort of shifted away from projects, but I found myself in this selling buckets of time.
Yeah.
And in essence, what I was doing is it changes the conversation you have. When you sell time, you tend to get into this sort of tactical conversation, right? When you productize your knowledge and expertise, and we'll talk about what I mean by product here in a second, it changes the conversation to much more about outcomes. It's a higher level conversation. And we're not getting into the well, you sold me 5 hours. Can we do it in 30-minute increments versus all of that stuff that we all get into? So that's the goal, is to change the level of conversation, the focus of the conversation. So a product or a package or a branded service can look different for everybody. It could be, maybe you decide to write a book. That's one way to productize your knowledge in a concise thing that you can sell. That's one thing. Maybe you can create an online course that you create once and sell over and over and over. You've productized your knowledge. Maybe you've got templates and tools that you use in your business that you can package up and sell to other coaches. That's another way to productize your knowledge, right? You've probably bought some of those things from other coaches and other experts, right? We all do. Any kind of proprietary system or approach that has helped you be successful in delivering results can be productized, packaged, branded, and resold. So it can be resold as a standalone thing, or it can be how you present yourself to the world. I have a growth accelerator blueprint approach versus let me sell you 20 hours of time. Has a very different feel, and it changes the level of conversation that we have. So that package or that product can show up very differently in every business. And it really, this question ties into sort of the first step of the process that we'll touch on here in a second. But don't be limited by what other people are doing in your industry and the other coaches or consultants, because they're following somebody else's path. Maybe look at a different industry or a different expert that's doing something unique and see if you can take that idea into your business.
So I guess the next question is pretty clear, is who should be productizing their knowledge, or who is this system going to work best for?
Yeah. If you are in the information business, you're selling what's between your ears, this will work for you. Unless you already have established a big brand name and a big presence in your space, well, if you've done that, you've probably already productized your knowledge. But for the most of us, we've got a reach that we want to expand. And if we're selling what's between our ears, we have to do it. Otherwise, we end up just competing at a dollars and cents position in the marketplace, and that's a race to the bottom.
So I'm wondering if we can go just a little bit more in depth of what that looks like. So if I was a coach, and I am a coach, but let's say I'm a completely different coach. Let's say that I'm a completely different coach who's just getting started in the business. I'm not even really sure what my hourly rate should be, because that's not clear, speaking from experience. But how would I go from this mindset of that hourly rate approach to productizing or packaging those services?
Yeah. I think somewhere where we have to start as we go through this journey, because it's a journey, it's a process that we go through, is answering two questions. One is there a weakness or a gap in my business that I need to fill or change? So in your example, a new coach may not have lots of clients. So they're just kind of trying to, beat around the bushes, trying to find somebody that wants to work with them. And so maybe differentiation is the thing that we have to focus on. So we have to create some kind of offer. Maybe another way to put all of this is another way to wrap around is to think about an offer. We have to create an offer that is hard to compare to another coach selling 10 hours a time. Mm-hmm. Then they don't have an apples to apples. They can't get to the hourly rate, negotiation thing, or the how many clients, how much experience, and all of these things that we go through. You want to be really hard to be compared to as you think about that first thing.
Yeah, and another thing, just to add on to what you're saying, is a lot of coaches, I can speak from experience, see themselves starting out a new career as a coach, and they think, well, I don't have any experience. But the truth is that what coaches really work on is their intuition. And you have, however old you are, in experience in developing your intuition and developing your unique skill set of what makes you tick, and the type of people that you're going to work really well with and resonate with. So if you're listening today and if you hear that productizing your knowledge and experience, and you think, well, I'm brand new at this business. You're not. You've been on earth for a while now, and you have plenty of experience. And that's what you're talking about, really.
It is very well said. I think if you've ever helped people in your life overcome a thing, get clearer on a thing, you've got experience. Yeah. And you can brand and package that story, even if you weren't paid for it and it was 10 years ago. Who cares? You had an impact on somebody's life. That's the whole point. That's why we do this work. So I think that's the first place we go. Well, I've just started. I don't have. Ask your friends and family. Send an email, send a text, ask them, how have I impacted you in your life? You'll get more feedback than you ever dreamed of. And you can start building from there.
And it feels uncomfortable to ask that question, but it is really useful to do. So what are some of the, so you've listed a few of the benefits kind of by happenstance as we talked about this, but what are some of the benefits of productizing or moving away from that hourly rate approach?
Yeah. Well, I think there are internal benefits and there are external benefits. So let's talk about the internal benefits, because I think sometimes we overlook that. If you've got a repeatable, proven system that delivers results, and you can plug clients into that system, you become more efficient, more effective, and ultimately more profitable. Versus kind of going through the routine with each client, and it's very fluid and dynamic, and that sounds good to the client, but it's really an efficient way to run a business, right?
So it's frustrating, and you have to remember it all for each of your individual clients.
You do, and quite honestly, it changes the outcomes for your clients.
Yes,
right? You want consistent impact, positive impact, and having a repeatable system which you can package and brand makes you more effective, more efficient. It takes the stress and workload off of you as well. So that's it. That's one example of an internal benefit. An external benefit would be, as I said earlier, it's hard to compare you to the competition from a price point, number one. It's also hard to compare you to the competition in terms of your approach. Because, you know, if we all went to the same types of coaching schools with the same types of coaching methodologies, we're all selling the same stuff. If we learn to weave in our personal experiences and then our processes, or we just brand this whole thing, it separates you a little bit from the pack. And that's what we want. You know, in my business, when I started Vantage Group, I realized that I've kind of got this experience in marketing and in sales and in sort of management consulting, strategy work. And it's kind of a unique three-legged stool. And so by pulling all those three things together in my brand and in my offer, it was really hard for me to be compared to a digital marketing agency or a sales consultant or a coach, because it's like yes and, right? So that's an example of how you can position yourself in a really unique way. And even if we step back for a second, a lot of what we're talking about is branding and packaging your services. Remember, this could be something completely different. Maybe you can create an e-course. Maybe you should be doing a mastermind, right? Leverage in the business comes from a one-to-many relationship. I was at the point in my business about 5 or 6 years ago where I literally couldn't take on any more one-on-one clients. But there was a part of the marketplace that I wasn't serving well, which were my referral partners and my network, small independent consultants and coaches. My sort of corporate consulting packages were just too big for them. And so I couldn't take on any more one-on-one clients. And my typical services were not accessible to the smaller businesses. So I created the Growth Collaborative Mastermind. I got massive leverage and had huge impact on more people. That's a way to package your knowledge and expertise.
Yeah. So I don't want to use my business as an example, but
Let's do it.
But so what kind of products or offers go into a package? Since we're moving away from that hourly rate, since we're not selling, 10-hour-long sessions with at an X rate, what goes into a package? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really driven by the kind of work you like to do, the kind of work you want to do, how you deliver your services, and how you can bring those together. So I'll give you an example. I was on a call with a prospect actually 2 weeks ago, and she was talking about this sort of 5-hour onboarding package she has. 5 hours of time. We know that doesn't work, right? 5 hours of time, and it was almost like well, the client has to buy it to be able to work with me, to be able to get to the bigger thing. But there was very little perceived value in that 5 hours. And she said that you get 3 or 4 hours in, and then they want to split that last 2 hours into 30 minutes, and it's this thing, and it takes forever, and it's just like this loose thing. And so after we talked about the purpose of those 5 hours, and we talked about some of the mechanics, what we did was we created this 30-day accelerator program. And so she has this questionnaire she goes through her in the first hour with her client. Just a questionnaire. We all have something, right? An onboarding thing. Sure. So, but that was just like a byproduct of her process. There was no that perceived value in that. But what we called it the accelerator audit. So, as part of the 30-day accelerator package, you get the accelerator audit. Instead of going and promising 5 hours, and ultimately with the feedback and the meeting summaries that she was sending, she was putting 7 hours into a 5-hour program. So where she was at 200 an hour, her realization rate was 142. It's not where she thought. And then she's looking at the audit, the questionnaire, and it was an inefficient model. So we said, okay, the 30-day accelerator includes 3 1-hour sessions and a booster session 30 days later. We gave it names. We start with the accelerator audit. So you come in with momentum. That first call, we've already got direction. And we have a very specific standard agenda for all 3 accelerator meetings. And then there's an accountability, the booster call in 30 days. So now she's actually delivering 4 hours of work instead of 7 hours of work. And that package was $2,500 instead of $1,000 at her standard hourly rate. So we included things she already did. We gave them value and identity, rolled it all up, and it made sense. And she actually did less work and got better results for her client because there's a much more systematic approach. And quite honestly, the secret sauce was the booster meeting 30 days later, right? That accountability, we know that counts. And that often rolled into the next offer. Like that booster meeting was like, that's where the value was for the client. And I'm like, well, how do we keep going? Please, you asked. We've got the next thing. So that's just an example of pulling 2 or 3 things that she already did together, but the 30-day accelerator gave it identity.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome story. And it makes it really practical to look at. So if I was listening to this for the first time, and this was inspiring me and I wanted to get started, what would be the steps to get started on prioritizing or packaging up my services in this way?
Yeah.
So
I guess, yeah.
What's your recommendation? Sorry.
Yeah. I would start by looking at your primary service that you offer. So is it a coaching approach? What is the approach? What are the tools you use? What is the outcome of this work? So in the example I offered, it was like a get going with me, really is what it was, right? It's an onboarding thing. But 30-day accelerator tells me, all right, I'm going to get, at the end of 30 days, I'm going to be moving. So that was the goal of her initial package. So think about your primary offer, the components of that offer, and the outcomes, the goals. Right. Sometimes we focus in marketing on eliminating the pain, right? Because we know pain is the number one motivator. Sometimes we focus on achieving the goal, right? In her case, she branded it around achieving the goal, right? But really, it was focused on the pain. Get moving in 30 days.
Yeah, because they're feeling stuck.
Exactly. So there's that sense of urgency there. So I would audit your current offer, right? Your current approach. Pull all your tools together. You've probably got questionnaires, you've got forms, you've got a process, you've got reporting, or however you give feedback. All those things are components that need to come together in a package or an offer, right?
Yeah. So this is so inspiring for me, and I'm just wondering if there are other examples that you can think of in terms of what kinds of things go into products or what kind of things go into packaging that would be
Yeah,
really helpful as examples.
yeah. Um, I've seen some really successful coaches and consultants. They've got the one-on-one, right, and that's going well, and they've packaged that, they've branded that, it's going well. Then they create a community of clients on the back end, right? All of the people that are in the community only get to be in the community when they've worked with me one-on-one or with you one-on-one, and they graduate to the community. And then we know the benefits of being in a community or being in a mastermind. That could be a really profitable long-term revenue, almost a passive revenue. It's not quite passive, but it could be that back-end offer. Maybe it's part of the initial package. It's $2,500 for the first thing, and then it's, I don't know, whatever it is, a month, and you get one-on-one time, and you get part of, you're a member of the community. And now you're managing a group, but they're all on a similar path because you went through the initial kind of onboarding, if you will, with you. So why not monetize a community?
Sure. And so you're talking about something like Mighty Networks or Mastodon, where you can create your own private community and have them in that, or a Facebook group even.
Yeah. There's lots of platforms. Circle is another one. There's lots of platforms to run the community on. And so I get less sort of wrapped around the axle with the technology and the platform. It's more about what's the value, right? I was in a high ticket mastermind. It was a 90-day mastermind, and I played plenty to be in the program. And the community piece was Facebook Messenger. Now, was it ideal? No. But did it work? Yes. You know, the technology is far less important than the deliverable, right? The engagement of the community. I like Circle. It's pretty inexpensive. It's built for community. You can do all kinds of cool stuff in there. But honestly, whatever, right? Technology, as long as it works, right? As we talked about before we hopped on the call. But it's about what is the value to building that membership to you as a business, but also to the community, right? That sharing I don't have to talk about the benefits of community. You and your audience understand that, but that's a really easy offer, a really easy value add. How many coaches do that? Not many. Why not? You've got people that know and love you and want to continue to work with you, maybe even if it's at a lower cost. Cool. Create a community. So that's an example.
I love that. So let's say now that I've created that package, like the next step is to sell that package or to at least to market that package. How would you start marketing something like that? What would that look like?
As long as you're not in day one of your business, you're probably out networking, probably out marketing, you're probably out posting on social media. The easiest place to start is just talk about it. Just talk about it, promote it. Not like a blatant sales pitch everywhere you go, but just talk about this thing that you do. This proprietary, I've got what did I say earlier? The growth blueprint, whatever it is, right? Just talk about it. Include it in your content. Always include it in your content. There's this myth that when you post on social media or you send emails to your list, there has to be this magic blend of education content and sales content. What's the blend? What's the 80-20? It's a myth. It's a myth. If you communicate telling stories and adding value, you can always weave in, here's how you can work with me.
Yeah. Stories speak so much better. I try to talk to when I have guests on my show. You've heard this, but stories really help the audience. Help your people, and so that's what you're talking about is creating the story of what is it that people benefit from using these products.
Yeah, and I think as you think about your content and your messaging, and maybe this is a little off track, but it sort of ties together. You will attract people into your sort of messaging world, your ecosystem, your network by talking about the problem. Because people say, Daniel was reading my mind. Holy cow, That's the problem I'm trying to solve. They don't care about how you solve it until they know that you relate to them, that you know their problem. We tend to talk about our widget and the big outcomes and the ROIs. And they're not there yet. They just need to know that you know.
Yeah.
So talk about the problem. It's okay. And it's not manipulative. It's just a way to connect with another human.
Yeah, if I can put that in other words, like I'm currently doing that with my business, right? So I'm working on perfectionism and overcoming perfectionism as an issue. But people don't identify as perfectionists, or if they do, it's just an excuse for the behavior that's actually causing the problem that they want to solve. So I focus on the symptoms of perfectionism. What are the symptoms? What are the symptoms of perfectionism that's getting in the way, that's causing frustration and causing problems?
Yeah.
And what do I do to solve that? Like it's back to that old marketing thing of position you, position me, right? It's what do you suffer from that I can help you with?
Yeah. Yeah. And I may not have self-diagnosed as a perfectionist, but I relate to the story of how it took you 4 hours to write a 3-sentence email because you didn't want to be perceived as whatever, right?
You read
right there, man. Because I immediately, so you relate to that story. But if I said, Dan, you're a perfectionist, I don't know what you're talking about. What? So that all ties, because that's the beginning of the journey that they relate with. So you can get to the point where you talk about your package, your service, your offer, because it's going to work on that. So you can spend 3 minutes on a 3-sentence email, not 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's that. Tell me more, dude.
Yeah, that is how to market your solutions. So, just to bring it back around, because we did get off track, because we really wanted to talk about the productizing or the packaging of services, yep, instead of thinking about it from a dollar perspective. If you were to summarize this all into kind of one simple concept or one thought or final piece that people took away from today, what would that look like?
That's a big question.
I know.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. As you think about this concept of productizing or monetizing your knowledge, start with, is this offer going to be something that somebody will do on their own? Is it a DIY offer? So I give you a course and you just go do it. Is it a done with you? I'll give you the course, but we do some coaching along the way. Or is it a done for you? I'm just going to fix this thing for you, right? Start there, because that helps you figure out the components. And in coaching, most of the time, it's done with you, right? You're going to shoulder to shoulder in the journey. So if that done with you offer makes sense, then build from there, okay? Inevitably, price is a piece of this conversation, right? How do we price this thing? I would say double what you think you can sell it for, and see how people react. Ask as much as you can without smiling like this is ridiculous, right? And that's pushing people way out of their comfort zone, way out of the comfort zone. So my example from the beginning, 5-hour package, 200 an hour, it's $1,000, $1,000, 2,500. That's 2.5 times her standard rate, and it's 3x the realization rate because she was actually putting more time in. But she felt confident. She's like, yeah, let's see if it sticks. It's very hard to raise your price once you've given it to someone. It's very easy to negotiate down if you have to. And I'll say to the audience, never lower your price without reducing scope. Otherwise, you just devalued your services and you just eliminated all the value of the package.
Yeah, and there was a study from the ICF, just to tack on to that the more that you charge for your coaching services, the more successful your clients tend to be. And this was a weird study. It was shocking, eye-opening when they covered it during my training. So
yeah, the more skin in the game.
Yep.
People that pay attention. All the other sayings are out there. It is so true. Some of my corporate consulting, I do some fractional work, so fractional CMO, fractional CRO work, and I was charging pretty good rate for my hourly rate. when I started packaging it as a fractional CMO or CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, I literally doubled my rate. And these CEOs are like, sweet, because they were no longer comparing me to, let's say, an agency. They were comparing me to a full-time CMO that could be $200,000 or $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
The conversation changed. So that's
Yeah. So I just want to thank you again so much for being here. For anyone who is wanting to connect with you to find out more about your mastermind or working with the Vantage Group, what is the best way for them to keep in touch with you or to find you?
the best and easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. You can look me up. If you just go to deanisaacs.com, it will take you directly to my LinkedIn page. Connect, say hi, say you found me on Daniel's podcast, and we can chat.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear about it too. I'd love to hear your that I'm speaking to the audience now. I'd love to hear your inspiration from today. What inspired you the most in our comments today? And I also want to invite you to make sure that you're subscribed to our content, that you've clicked that like button to help us to let Google know that this is valuable content that other people would really enjoy, and to tune in next week for a live episode. We're going to be talking a little bit about perfectionism next week. So I hope to see you there. And thank you so much for being here with us, Dean. I'll see you again because you've already booked another episode with us.
I'm looking forward to the next one. Thanks for having me back on.
Take care.
All right.